Madam Speaker, 42,600 unemployed. 42,600 unemployed. 44% of the unemployed were aged below 25. 36% had been looking for work for more than 1 year. 31% were looking for the job for the first time. These are official latest figures from Statistics Mauritius published in September 2017. Yes, Madam Speaker, we have an unemployment program. We have a problem. We have graduates who are sitting at home. We have people coming out from school who are looking for jobs. We have women looking for jobs. We have an unemployment issue, and I'm afraid, Madam Speaker, the bill that is before us is not going to make any significant change to reverse the trend. And I have to confess, Madam Speaker, reading the speech of the Honourable Minister of Labour, Industrial Relations, Employment and Training, the mover of the bill last week, reading his speech, I could not but wonder whether we were reading the same bill. Because my appreciation of this bill is completely different from his appreciation. And he used words such as historic moment for this bill. He used words like modern legislative framework. He used the words that the Employment and Training Ordinance 1963 was a legacy of our colonial masters, and this setup remained unchanged and is clearly an artifact. This is what he said about the existing system. But, Madam Speaker, when we take a closer look of what is being proposed in this bill, how different is this bill from the existing provisions of the Employment and Training Act of 1963? First of all, this bill is going to introduce a department, a national economic department. The department is going to replace the Employment Service, which is already a department of the same ministry. This department would be headed by a director. The existing Employment Service is also headed by a controller. Just a change of name, from a director to controller. Now let us look at the object of that department, which is in section 5 of the bill. If we look at the first one, the department shall promote employment. This is already the mandate of this ministry. It's something new. B, it is going to facilitate the employment of job seekers and ensure that job seekers are able to find employment that meets their aspiration. But this is exactly what the Employment Services was doing. This is found in Section 3 of the existing Employment and Training Act of 1963. Same thing. The next object, it is going to provide assistance and guidance with regard to employment prospect, including future employment prospect. Again, this is taken almost verbatim from Section 4, subsection 4 of the existing Employment and Training Act 1963, which even used the same identical word, provision of advice, guidance, and other services for any persons of any class. Object D, provide labour market information on demand and supply of skills to local employers, job seekers, and training institutions. If we look at Section 4, subsection 4 of the existing Act, again, the Minister may make arrangement for the collection and furnishing of information for persons of any class, whether employed or unemployed. Same thing, same object. Then, when it comes to Object E, the fifth object, promote placement and training of job seekers through approved program. Again, Section 5 of the existing legislation. The Minister may provide such vocational training courses for persons, whether employed or not, as he thinks fit or expedient. So identical. Same functions that is going to be given to the new department, same functions were already given to the employment service, was already with the minister. But when we look at this section E, again, Madam Speaker, and I'm not here, I don't see anyone from the State Law Office, but there is a serious drafting problem. When we look at the memorandum of the explanatory memorandum, section 2E, section 2E reads that this department will promote placement and training of job seekers, including young persons and persons with disabilities, including young persons and persons with disabilities through approved programs. But when we look at the substantive provisions of the law, section 5E talk about promoting placement and training of job seekers through approved program, but we don't find young persons, we don't find persons with disabilities. What has happened? From the explanatory note to the substantive provisions, has there been an amendment? Has anyone, in the meantime told the Honourable Minister, but, there already exists an institution called the Training and Employment of Disabled Persons Board, which is supposed to precisely provide training to disabled people with disabilities. And we've had occasion to talk about this board, how inefficient it is, how it is unable to apply the law, which requires certain employers to employ at least 3% of their workforce from people with disabilities. So if this new bill was going to create an inroad, was going to promote the employability of people with disabilities, yes, that would have been a historical moment. But it's not doing that. It's not even part of its object. It's only in its explanatory memorandum, but not part of the object. And what happened to the training of young people? Who is going to do that? Is it going to be the department, or is it going to be the existing ministry? Is it going to be the Mauritius Institute of Training and Department? What will happen to MITD? Will MITD run courses, training courses now? Will MITD identify courses to be trained? Or will that be the department? Will there be a coordination between the department and MITD? And it's unfortunate that Honourable Dukan is not here. As Minister, I would have expected her to enlighten us what she thinks about this new department and whether that is going to have any impact on the services already offered by officers from her ministry. And in this, I'm thinking about mismatch between demand and supply. I'm thinking about career guidance. Who will provide career guidance? Who would identify the areas where there is shortage? Will it be this department? Will it be people from her ministries, the Ministry of Education, Tertiary Education, etc.? The next object, this is new, promotion of labour migration. Yes, this was not in the 1963 legislation, but circular migration has been part of the mandate of the ministry from many years ago. We've had many agreements signed already between the ministry and other countries to facilitate the employment of Mauritians. But, Madam Speaker, I, for one, do not favour migration as a solution to solve our unemployment problems. I say it clearly. We have children. We grow our children. We nurture our children. We provide them free education. We provide them free health care. We look after them. And we have when they reach an age to serve their country, what we're doing, we're sending them abroad. It's like as if we have planted a seed. We've watered it. We've looked after it. Today, the seed has become a tree. The tree has fruits. And instead of us reaping the fruits, foreigners, outsiders are taking our fruits. We cannot have a policy of migration, of brain drain. We cannot encourage our Mauritians to go and work abroad. If we do that, this is an aveu d'échec. It means that Mother Mauritius is not able to look after her children. And this is what this government should be doing. Creating jobs, creating all the necessary environment for great creation, not favoring migration, not telling our children, don't come back home, stay abroad, migrate, go to Canada, go to Australia, don't come home. No, we should not separate our children. Mauritius needs every single one of us because our priceless assets is our manpower, our human resource. Then the last object of this new department is encourage and promote home-based work. Yes, this is a good initiative. We should promote, as far as possible, people who can work from home. That will give them the flexibility of not traveling to Port Louis or Eben, be the travel. And now with internet, a lot of things can be done from Mauritius. But it serves no purpose having a department to promote home-based work if it is not followed by fiscal incentives. Today we have a problem because the MRA, the Income Tax Department, when they disallow expenditure, if you have an office, if you have a phone, if you have a fax from your office, they will give you the whole exemption, the whole deduction. But if you use the same facilities, the same fax, the same telephone, the same facilities at home, they would say that part of it is personal expenditure, and therefore they would use an arbitrary formula. Sometimes they will disapply 1/3 of it. So if we want home-based work to work, we will have to get the MRA on board so that a person who is working at home is not fiscally disadvantaged compared to someone who goes to an office. Madam Speaker, I have gone through the object of this National Employment Department extensively because unlike the Honourable Minister, I don't think that this bill is historical, but I think it's an occasion manquée. I think that there's so much more that could have been done, so much better that could have been done. Unfortunately, it's an occasion ratée. Now I would turn to a few specific sections of the law which I think deserve certain comments. Section 9, power of authorized officers. The officers under Section 9 are now given the blank check. During office hours, they can enter the premises of any employer and ask him to furnish any information which he may require. Now this, I concede, this was a provision which was already in the 1963 Act. But I think it's a dangerous provision. I think it was a provision that was there when we didn't have data protection legislation, when we didn't have secrecy. There may be valid reason why a person would not want the officers from the ministry to know how much he earns. I mean, he may be perfectly doing his filing with the National Pension Fund, he may be filing his tax return, but why should he be giving confidential, sensitive information to officers of labor? And worse, Madam Speaker, when we look at the definition of employer, employer is defined as a person, a government department, a local authority, a statutory body, a company, a firm, who hires the services of another person other than a part-time employee. Which basically means that anyone who hires a full-time employee becomes an employer. Which means that any one of us here who has a full-time driver, who has a full-time maid, who have a full-time gardener, we are all employers. And that means that at any time during office hour, you can get a representative of the labor office to come to your house, because this is where you employ your maid, come to your house and ask you to give information about all your employees and ask you any information that they want. Because this is how it is styled. Any information that they want, you have to give. And what happens if you don't give? There's Section 17 of the Act. Any person who obstructs or gives false or misleading information to an officer under this Act, or otherwise contravenes this Act, shall commit an offence and shall on conviction be liable to a fine not exceeding 25,000 rupees and to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 6 months. So, Madam Speaker, I don't want Big Brother watching us. I don't want KGB. If the Honourable Minister will go ahead and think that, this coercive measure is important for the running of the department, at least qualify the definition of employer. Make it employer being employer who employs more than X number of people. Like You already have it in the Employment Relations Act. It's only applicable if you employ more than 10 people. Or make it by reference to turnover. It's only if you have a turnover of X thousand rupees or 100,000 rupees. But not make it general and put anyone under pressure of being investigated by the department. The next provisions that I would like to draw the Honourable Minister's attention to is Section 10, registration of job seekers. Now, every job seeker, anyone who is looking for a job is now going to be required to register with the director. And this director, the department, will provide job opportunities or job training to that jobless person. And if he refuses the training or the job for 3 times, then he will be taken out of the department. He will not be given any more training. He will not be given any more job. But worse, he will not be treated as jobless, as a job seeker. So that will reduce the statistic about job seekers. Now, I think this is very unfair. This is very unfair because there may be valid reasons, and I know you talk about any reasonable excuse. There may be reasons why a person refuses a job or a training. Here we are talking about training offer which is in line with his profile and qualification. Who decides what is in line with his profile and qualification? Let's take an example of a person who doesn't have CPE or PSAT. What type of job should he be doing? What is his job profile? What if he, as the Honorable Ratna said, general worker, he doesn't want to be a general worker. He has greater aspiration. He wants to do a vocational, a métier. He doesn't want to be a refuse collector. Who determines this job profile? And if he's a graduate, again, he may not wish to work in a certain category of work, but in other categories. Now, if he refuses for 3 times, he will be taken out. So I think this will create problem. And as I said, the aim should not be coercion. The aim should be helping these people to find a job. So it should not serve any purpose to withdraw them from the system. The next area of concern is Section 11, the responsibility of employers. Now, every employer is required to register through the National Employment Dashboard. Now, the National Employment Dashboard will be this new website of the ministry. So this will be completely computerized. So any employer, including now you and I, who employ a full-time employer, all of us here, all the employers, will have to go and register on the electronic dashboard, which means that all of us will need to have a computer, we need to have access to the internet, we need to have access to the website too. Now, what would happen once you have registered yourself? Section 11A2 provides, and I'll read it. Every employer shall advertise any vacancy open to the public within 7 days of the advertisement. Now, what does that mean? Every employer must advertise any vacancy within 7 days of the advertisement. I can understand you advertising any vacancies within 7 days of the vacancies. But, advertising any vacancy within 7 days of the advertisement? I don't know. I don't even know how. I'm a lawyer and I don't even know how to interpret this. What it means to advertise within 7 days of the advertisement. When you advertise, you're advertising on the day, right? How are you advertising within 7 days of the advertisement? And again, if you don't follow this, you have this sanction of 6 months imprisonment. Now, every time you have a vacancy, therefore you have to go on that website and key in the name and the vacancy. So if I have our ordinary small and medium enterprise, our ordinary marchand pourri, he wants to sack his helper, he has to go, find a computer, go on the internet, say that, I don't have a helper. Same thing, if you have a mason tone, he usually has 2 helpers with him. Today he's decided to sack one of them because he didn't come up for work. He has to go, key in, find a computer, go to the dashboard. I mean, is it how we're going to help small and medium enterprises? Are we facilitating recruitment? Or are we imposing a burden on small and medium enterprise? Is this national dashboard going to create more jobs, or is it going to create more administrative hassle for the small and medium enterprise? So this is why I'll make an appeal to the minister. It is not a bad idea of having a dashboard. I can understand the logic. But at least redefine employer. Make it applicable to only those who can afford to do it. People who have a certain turnover or who employs a certain number of people. But the way it is drafted, all employers, everyone, will have to go on that dashboard, and that is going to be an administrative hassle and an economical headache for all the small and medium enterprises. The next area of concern, Madam Speaker, and that will be my final comment on this bill, will be Section 12, the National Employment Advisory Committee. Now, again, this is not a historical measure, because if we look at the existing Employment and Training Act, Section 3, subsection 2, already gave the power to the minister. The minister may refer such matters as he thinks fit to such advisory committee or boards as he may appoint. So there already was this provision in the existing legislation, not a historical move. But now that it has been codified, there's going to be this committee. This committee is going to assist the minister on a lot of issues, mainly Section 13A, employment policies and strategies. It's a very important committee who's going to advise the minister on employment strategies. And when we look at the composition of this committee, who are going to be on this committee? We all know that jobs are created by the private sector and the public sector. But for the public sector, there are very minimal new jobs. It's mostly replacing people, filling vacancies. The main drivers of employment are the private sector. But when we look at the composition of this committee, how many representatives from the private sector? Where is the representative of Business Mauritius, which has replaced the Mauritius Employers Federation? The main organization who looks after the interests of employer in the private sector is not even included. And I've spoken to these people. They were not even consulted when this was done. And today, who is going to be the representative of the employer? Someone appointed by the minister. The minister is going to choose the representative of the private sector. Just like the minister is going to choose who among the trade unionists will sit on that committee. So at the end of the day, Madam Speaker, what will this committee be? It will be a bunch of civil servants and political appointees, ministerial appointees. So how is this committee going to fairly advise on strategy? How is he going to really represent the demand from the private sector, from the employer? So again, I would ask the Honourable Minister to at least consider allowing the trade unionists and the employers to appoint their own representatives. Madam Speaker, the Honourable Minister mentioned in his speech that his ministry has signed an agreement with the French authorities for assistance towards restructuring employment services. And he said he'd done that in line with Pôle d'emploi. But is the Honourable Minister aware that this Pôle d'emploi, which has replaced l'Agence nationale pour l'emploi, ANPE, has been severely criticized in France, severely criticized by la Cour des comptes, which said, and I quote, la fusion est acquise, mais les résultats attendus n'ont pas été atteints. The result was not achieved. You just have to Google Pôle d'emploi on the internet, and you'll see the number of criticism, the number of mismanagement, of mishandling of cases. So I'm afraid, Madam Speaker, Pôle d'emploi is anything but a reference. What we need in Mauritius is a Mauritius solution to a Mauritius problem. And this is where the problem lies. We all know, Madam Speaker, how the system works today. People are asked to go and stamp cards. They stamp cards and they wait. They wait for years, they wait for months, they don't receive anything. And is this bill going to change it? No. This bill is going to do exactly the same thing. It's going to require the job seekers to go and register with the new department. Instead of registering and stamping card with the employment service, they are now going to register electronic, so they are not going to stamp card electronically with the dashboard. But why the system will not change? Because today there is a perception that in order to get a job, you need a political backing. This is the problem. The problem is not registering unemployed. The problem is ensuring that an unemployed who registers himself is given the same chance, the same opportunity to get a job as anyone else who registered. And we all know that this is not the case. We all know how appointment is done under delegated powers, when the PSC give delegated powers to certain ministers, to certain departments to employ. How are people selected? And I dare say, ministers themselves, PPS, government officials themselves, like to brag that they are able to find employment. We have seen in this House, it's in Hansard, the Honourable Deputy Prime Minister, he himself said, when he employs someone, he needs someone with the same vision as him. He said it, it's in Hansard. Exactly, in your parastatal bodies, absolutely, in your parastatal bodies. So if I am super qualified in your parastatal bodies, it's no purpose for me to go and register in the dashboard because I'm not going to get a chance because I don't share the same views as the Honourable Minister responsible for this body. So there's no equal opportunity. We've heard another senior minister give an interview and say that there's nothing wrong recruiting people from your parts. He said there's nothing wrong. The Honourable Gaian, you say there's nothing wrong giving interview, there's nothing wrong. So why have this employment service? Why to have this national dashboard if we don't change the mentality? Why? Nothing will change. We've heard, and it's just not this government, it's been the same. Not just this government. We heard the former PPS, it was tape recorded, saying that he has provided a list of people from his constituency for PSC for appointment, former PPS from another party. This is this mentality that has to change. If this mentality does not change, having all this legislation will not make any difference. Madam Speaker, I was having lunch with a minister from Singapore the other day. And I said to him, how do you cope with all these people from your constituencies who come and look for jobs? How do you cope with these people, Do they queue up in the morning? Because in Mauritius, this is a big problem, Every week you go to CAB, they're all queuing up. They have brought their CVs for their children, for their nephew, niece. They all want to have a job. How do you in Singapore tackle this? And you know what he said to me, Madam Speaker? He said to me, no one ever come to me for a job. because I cannot give them a job. And if I were to represent that I can give them a job, then it would mean effectively that this agency we have for job creation is not working. So this is the message. It doesn't matter if you have this new employment dashboard, if you have this new employment department, if ministers, members of the governments will continue to give the perception that they can provide jobs, that you need political backing to get a job, it will serve no purpose having all these laws until there's a change in mentality. Madam Speaker, Albert Einstein is reported to have said, although there is dispute whether he said it the first time or someone else said it before him, Albert Einstein said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. I'm afraid, Madam Speaker, unless there's a change in mentality, unless ministers and governments stop interfering in the recruitment process, I'm afraid, but to think that this bill will make any difference is pure insanity. Thank you.